Hey, what's up? My name is Alex, and welcome to English Rewind Listening and Reading Comprehension. Today, we're working through English Rewind newsletter number 14. The title is Alice in Wonderland. This is a bit different than usual because I didn't write the basic, the advanced English. This comes from the book, the first chapter of Alice in Wonderland. And the basic English is just me making it a bit easier to understand. Okay, but let's get into it. Alice in Wonderland, basic English. Alice was tired of sitting by the river with her sister. She had nothing to do. Her sister was just reading a book. Alice thought the book was stupid. It had no pictures or conversations in it. Alice thought about playing with the flowers, but it was very hot outside. This made her feel very tired. Just sitting there, she suddenly saw a white rabbit with pink eyes run by her. Advanced English. So this is the way it's actually written in the book, which is it's a children's story, but the English is quite difficult, I think, for people who are learning English as a second language. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank. And having nothing to do, once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading. But it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? Yeah, that's a very long sentence. That might be a bit difficult to understand for some people. But let's go on. She was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day. Okay, let me try that again, sorry. So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. Okay. I will get back to this part and explain everything properly again, but let's work through the key words first. Bank. So this is not a bank like where you go to get money. This is a bank where the ground is raised, a slope, a mound, or the land next to a river. I actually have pictures here on Google Pictures of banks. So you see here where the river flows, and then you have the grass next to the river, like this. This is the bank. This is a bank. You also have a grass bank. So you see where the grass is raised like this, where it goes up like this. That's a bank, a grass bank, where the grass moves up like this. It forms kind of like a hill. That's a grass bank. So Alice was sitting next to the bank, on the bank. So it was probably a grass hill raised like this, and she was sitting on it. Not necessarily by the river. Maybe not. But it was a raised piece of land, probably with grass on it, the bank. So it was here with Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank. So she was sitting on the bank by her sister. We sat on the grass bank next to the river. Peep. To look quickly, often through a small opening. So when you peep, it's just like, you peep through the window to see what's going on. You peep through the keyhole to see what's going on. Peep is just looking quickly, kind of secretively, you're not supposed to know what's going on. You're peeping. It was used here with once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading. So her sister was reading a book, and she was sitting next to her sister on the bank, looking in the book. She was peeping every now and then, just looking quickly and then doing nothing again. Looking. She was peeping into the book. The thief peeped through the door's keyhole. So you have the door's keyhole, and the thief quickly peeped through, looking what was on the other side. Consider. To think about something, usually before making a decision. We saw it here when it said here that she was considering in her own mind whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble. She was considering in her own mind to do something. Let's just focus on that sentence. She was considering in her own mind whether or not to do something. So consider means she was thinking about it. Should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? And in the story here she was thinking of whether or not she should make a daisy chain. I'll explain now what a daisy chain is. Let's just look at the example sentence. Okay, the first example sentence was, you should consider buying flowers, which means it might be a good idea. It might be a good idea to buy her flowers. You should consider buying her flowers. It might be a good idea to buy her flowers. So consider means think about it. Maybe you want to do it. Think about it. Consider it. Did you consider asking me for help? So, did you think of asking me for help? Did you consider it? Did you think about it? Did you think whether or not you should ask me help? Did you consider asking me help? I am considering going to the movies, which means I think I might go to the movies. I'm thinking about it. Maybe I'll go. I'm considering it. Okay. And then daisy chain. A daisy is a flower, I'll show you now, and a daisy chain is taking those flowers and threading them together. You tie them together like this, threaded together by their stems, often in a circle. It was seen here in the sentence, or wait, before we read the sentence, let me quickly give you an example. So this is a daisy chain. You see how it looks here? It's threaded. So this is a daisy, a flower, and then it gets threaded in a circle, usually in a circle next to each other. It can be used as a crown like this, but this is a daisy chain. This is a daisy chain. So here it says that she was considering in her own mind. We can skip the part that's in parentheses. She was considering in her own mind whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies. So she was thinking of making a daisy chain. She was sitting on the bank. She was bored. Her sister was reading a book, and she wanted to make one of those daisy chains I just showed you. The example sentence is, the daisy chain looked like a crown of flowers. And in the picture we saw just now, the daisy chain can look like a crown of flowers as well. Okay, but let's work through this slowly, not quickly, and then let me just explain everything. It's very long sentences, so it can be somewhat difficult to understand what they're always saying. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading. So it says, yes, she was bored. She was tired of sitting next to her sister and of having nothing to do, which means, and because she had nothing to do, once or twice she looked into the book her sister was reading. So she was sitting on the bank next to her sister. She was getting tired. She had nothing to do. So every now and then she looked at the book her sister was reading. But the pictures, it had no pictures or conversations in it. So it wasn't a storybook. There weren't any pictures and no conversation. So people weren't talking. It might have been a school book, a textbook, something explaining something, but it was not a storybook. And so Alice is thinking to herself, what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversation? So it's a boring book. It's a stupid book, she thinks, because it has no pictures. It has no conversations. So basically, Alice is sitting next to her sister, and Alice is bored. The book that her sister is reading is stupid. So she is now trying to figure out what can I do? I'm bored. I want to do something. So it says she was considering in her mind, meaning she was thinking to herself, considering in her mind, thinking to herself, as well as she could, for the day was hot. For the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid. So she was sitting there thinking, but now it says she did it as best she could, as well as she could, meaning to the best of her ability. She was trying to think as best as she could because it was very hot. So she felt sleepy and stupid. Stupid means you don't want to think. You're just like, oh, what's going on? So she was sitting there thinking to herself, or at least trying to, because it was very hot. So she was tired because of all the heat, and she felt slow and dumb and stupid and just tired in her head as well. So she was considering in her own mind whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking daisies. So she was sitting there thinking, is making a daisy chain fun? And because it says whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain. So when you say whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain, it means whether or not how fun it is. So this basically means is if whether or not making a daisy chain is fun enough for me to want to get up and do it. Because remember, it's very hot outside. So she's thinking, I could get up and make a daisy chain, but it's very hot outside. So is this going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth the time and the effort to get up and make the daisy chain? Am I going to enjoy it? So she's basically wondering, is it worth it to get up and make a daisy chain? When suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. So this is now, of course, the rabbit that goes into the hole, and then she falls down the hole as well, and then the whole story begins. But this should have made sense. Otherwise, just read the basic English as well, which gives a more simplified explanation of what this means. A good advice I can give, usually when reading long sentences like these, is break them up into shorter sentences. So Alice was getting tired of sitting by her sister on the bank. Okay, what does that mean? Then you move on to the next. And of having nothing to do, once or twice she had peeped into a book her sister was reading. Okay, what does this mean? So even if it's a long sentence, that long sentence is still broken up into smaller pieces. So figure out what each one of those small pieces means. And then bring them together, and then you'll get a picture of what this whole thing means. Okay, that was it for English Rewind Newsletter 14. And that's it for today's episode. It sounds funny when I say episode. Today's video of listening and reading comprehension. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like, to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you would like me to talk about. And yeah, until next time, cheers.